This is Keys to the Shop, episode number 10, and today we're discussing, are competitions relevant to real life? Welcome to the 10th episode of Keys to the Shop. I can't believe it's been 10 episodes already. Thanks for joining me today. And this podcast, the goal of the podcast is to give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. We're right in the middle of competition season, which is to say both of the qualifying events for the U.S. Coffee Championships have taken place, the one in Knoxville. And you remember that one from our Baristas Speak interviews, where we got to sit down with 5 baristas and get their insights into barista work. There was one after that in Austin, and now all of the people selected get to move on to Seattle. So really big congratulations to all of the winners in those competitions, as well as all of you moving on to a spot for the U.S. Coffee Championships in Seattle in April. Now, today's topic is an interesting one because somewhere in the course of your career in coffee, if you've chosen to participate in competitions or if you've watched competitions, chances are you've heard the question or even asked the question yourself, as I have, how is this relevant to what I do on the bar every day? How is this competition going to make me a better barista? Which might be easier to answer than an owner's question, which is, how is what is happening here in this competition going to make my bar better? How does this relate to real life? And I think that's a fair question because there's a lot of theatrics involved in these competitions. But if you've participated in these and you've seen the benefit, you know what those things are. And to help us break down exactly what it is you get from competition for your shop and for your career is none other than Jess Steffy. Jess Steffy owns Square One Coffee, which is a specialty coffee roaster headquartered in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, with locations in Lancaster and in Philadelphia. I think 2 in Philadelphia and 1 in Lancaster. She has over 12 years of experience in the industry. She is a licensed Q grader, BGA certified barista, an SCA certified lead instructor, a veteran USBC judge, certified world barista judge, and she is currently serving as the chair of the SCA US Competitions Committee. So as a successful business owner who is deeply involved in competitions, she, I think, is uniquely qualified to speak to the subject of competition's relevancy to your shop and career. So with that, it's my honor to welcome Jess Steffy to Keys to the Shop. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while, but it's nice to be reconnected with Cristoferio.
Yeah, we share a bit of a history in the coffee community and beyond. I think the first time we connected was way back in like 2000 at a ministry school in the Midwest where we were both attending, where I kind of started getting into coffee, and I did Krups machines in a dining hall, did these impromptu coffee shops. You remember that?
The Oregon chai flowed like wine. It was an all-around great time, but you were coffee guru then, and still.
Yeah, right. The coffee guy on campus, and just really didn't think about much else at the time. But yeah, we reconnected in 2009 briefly when I worked for Cafe Cubal in Syracuse, and that was a cool time. You guys were maybe a year and a half into starting your company, Square One, at that time, right?
Yep. Well, we had just purchased Square One from the previous owner. We purchased it in the middle of 2007.
Right.
So yeah, it would have been just like getting a year under our belts and then going, let's see what else there is to do in coffee. Because I think at the time we were probably just mimicking this training that my husband had got at Starbucks. So we were probably just using all of those recipes. Remember those 7-gram singles and 14-gram doubles? And you were able to cause us to like just take a step back, zoom out a little, and use our taste buds to guide us to, hey, why are we brewing coffee like this? Why are we limiting ourselves? So yeah, we that kind of started the journey down this specialty coffee rabbit hole, I would say. 2008, 2009 for sure.
Awesome.
And you were I think we were coming up there, to be honest. We were probably coming up there to learn latte art because everybody wanted to just learn how to pour latte art. It was back in 2008, that was still like, whoa, how did you do that? So we went up there probably with that in mind, and then just had the door blown open for us for the possibilities of specialty coffee. So thank you again for that.
Oh yeah, latte art is a great gateway drug for that whole
Totally.
community. Still can be. That was really fun to connect with you guys then. And now you have 3 stores and 30 employees. Things have just blown up for you guys, and you're heavily involved in the SCAA. You're on the competition committee, you're chair, and you're a Q grader now. I mean, you just grown in coffee like exponentially, and I'm so just always excited to see new developments in your business. So, I mean, that's got to be just a whirlwind for you. You seem like a really busy person.
Yeah, trying to get my priorities in line. I've got a lot of volunteer commitments in coffee and outside of coffee. I'm pretty active with some nonprofits, and so I've been able to use some of my work that I'm already doing with nonprofits in the developing world to also kind of combine that with some coffee visits and some buying trips, and taking some of my staff over to help them connect as well to the full supply chain, as well as what Square One is doing, because Square One's pretty active and involved with those nonprofits. And then, not to mention, in our local community, I know Lancaster, Pennsylvania just recently made national news as the refugee resettlement capital of the U.S.
That's right, yeah.
Resettled 20 times the national rate here. So we've got like this thriving, diverse community. So there's always a lot of opportunities and a lot of interesting Ethiopian coffee ceremonies happening in Lancaster. So yeah. So with all of that, plus I do have 2 children. I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, and keeping involved with them in their school and their taekwondo, and running around and volunteering for the SCAA, and also trying to get back and forth because we do have 2 shops in Philly and 1 in Lancaster. And so I spend a fraction as much time as I'd like to with my staff in Philly. So trying to get creative about ways to bring those staffs together and get to see everybody and get to know everyone and be a part of everyone's journey, I guess, to use a cheesy word. But yeah, to feel like I really get to like hang with them and get to know them, because they're not, unfortunately, the turnover rate is great. I mean, it's great at our shop. We keep people for years and years and years. We've got longtime employees that have been with us for 8-9 years now. So
that's awesome.
But in Philly, we're still a relatively new entity in Philly. So, and it seems like everyone's hustling extra hard in Philly, and in New York, everyone's got 3 jobs. And so, yeah, to really get to know people, to even be able to inspire them as to why this is more than just a cafe job, and what they're a part of is something that, it's a struggle when you're not around every day. Like I work bar. Most of my long-term staff back in the day, we were, they saw me unplug a toilet or 2. So they know that I'm here and I'm in it and I'm willing to put in the work. But when you're not there every day, opening and closing the shop with your staff, thinking that it won't survive without you, then it's a little harder for them to see that picture. But we'll find other ways to, and I'll come do dishes every now and then, because I don't endeavor to mess up their bar flow. Absolutely not. I'm not that owner. So I'll come do their dishes though.
That's really funny. I think Seth Godin talks about that somewhere in a podcast, how in his businesses now, he doesn't come into work because he wants them to work well. And
yeah,
I feel like that too, because my bar shifts I don't have any bar shifts. So at this point in my life, so I'll do dishes and I'll help out in ways that will not screw things up. But I love what you're talking about, being present, being a connector, networking. I feel like you do that really well, and you've got so many responsibilities distributed throughout the community of coffee. So that alone, having your staff know that you're so involved and your company is involved in activism in that sense with the charities that you guys support is just an amazing. I would be really happy to work for a company like that. So, and one of the things we wanted to talk about was, and the main thing today is this question of competition and its relevancy to the real life, I say in, air quotes, real life coffee bar situations, the toilets that you have to unclog, like you said, angry customers or messed up drinks, things like that. When it comes to the competitions, you've been so involved in your shop as well as the competitions. I think you have a unique perspective that I'd love to hear more about. And you just got back from Coffee Champs, both events. You were in Knoxville, where I saw you briefly, and you were just in Austin. So I wanted to get you while it's all fresh in the mind here. And the first question, I suppose, is what is it about competitions that you see as valuable for the coffee community in general? And then we'll break it down for the average shop.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of value. I mean, and that is one of the, I think, harshest criticisms you could bring against competitions is, oh yeah, but those are totally pie in the sky, fine dining, not realistic at all for what a real life, real world shop is. That's just so far removed from our day to day. It's irrelevant. And that we've heard it. And in some ways, absolutely. Some of these competitors bring fire elements, literal smoking guns, and they're just, I mean, I think someone here, no naming names, did a fire element with a bowl over it.
Who could we be talking about?
I have no idea. Some campfire thing that was
something
amazing. Yeah. So these things surely can't be replicated on the fly in a busy shop setting. But what skills can be applied, it's all of that training, all of that behind the scenes, day in and day out, dialing in for speed, because at the competition floor, you have to dial in very fast, being able to be just so in tune with what's happening and with your equipment and with your coffee that you are aware of a slight difference as soon as it starts going wrong, so that you can stop and correct before you get minutes down the road. Just the efficiency, the speed with which you do the work you do, the cleanliness. Look at a technical score sheet at any of these competitions, and you'll see that there is a very robotic, very deliberate series of steps that are best practices in the industry, but then are also we do it this way for efficiency, to get a customer the product that they've requested as in as timely a manner as possible, and that the quality of that product is superior, and that it is consistent, not just you were on one day but you were kind of off the next day, but like the more you're a trained professional, the more your actual muscles are, the muscle memory is there. You are more of a dialed in, calibrated piece of equipment as much as a person can be, much like a runner training for the Olympics, even if you don't win at the end, there's no question that the caliber of an athlete that you are compared to someone who hasn't gone through that training. So, I mean, and I would say I can tell when I go to bars and I look at, and I'm ordering as a customer, and I look over the espresso machine, and I can tell the companies that are involved in competition and the companies that are not involved in competition. The cleanliness. I would also say that competition forces the barista, maybe in a way that nothing else does, to step out of their role as a barista and hop over to the judge's side, or what you in this case would be the customer's side, and say, what does my customer think of this? What does this look like to my customer? When I serve it in this fashion, how does that feel to my customer versus when I serve it in this fashion? Because service is such an important, critical component in any of these barista or brewers competitions. They're actually thinking about what information is really pertinent and what is just over the top and showing off. And maybe years ago it was, how much information could I possibly deliver in this short window? And it's kind of like trying to drink through a fire hose. But now it's kind of coming back full circle into a more approachable style of service, a more hospitality focused presentation, even where the focus has kind of started to shift back to the guest. So just competition inspiring these themes and these discussions around service. If nothing else, the provoking of these discussions and what is good service, what's good, what's average, because we're scoring service. That was an acceptable, that was average, that was good, that was very good. That was excellent. That was extraordinary. Those are the numbers and what they mean from 1 up to 6. And when we want to assign a score to a style of service, that provokes all sorts of questions about preference but just the fact that these conversations are heated and happening, I think you have a lot of credit to give to competition for kind of always being a format that provokes discussion in that area, for sure.
So would you say that in recent years, even this shift into the hospitality realm where people are more concerned about how the information is contextually relevant to their audience, albeit at the competition, has made competition more relevant than it ever has been for people who send their baristas and want to see benefit in their stores?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I think the presentations, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question right, but I feel like in the past, the presentations could almost have been, they were just at times, and this is a big sweeping generalization because of course you'll have some of these every year no matter what, but I feel like at large, they were very highbrow, very high level presentations given by coffee professionals to coffee professionals. And every now and then you'd have someone break that mold and be like, I'm just going to treat you like your average Joes. And then we even had a world barista competitor have people put on, or no, I'm sorry, that I judged the Canadian Nationals a couple years ago. And one of the finalists had us actually literally put on different hats when we were going to be our coffee professional selves and where we were going to be our Joe consumer selves. And he changed his presentation style per who the person was, and that started a whole bunch of arguments about, well, shouldn't you just, well, yeah, I mean, that it's super provocative, but yeah, I do think that a barista or just a brand new coffee professional attending these events today, there's more for them. There's all the levels. It's like a really great ski resort. It has the bunny hills, got your blue runs, you got your black diamonds and double black diamonds. You can go to these things now at any level and get something. I don't think it always was the case.
Okay. So as a shop owner, how have you seen this? And you've mentioned the efficiency, the speed, like being able to tell if a coffee shop has competition experience from a customer's point of view. You can tell. In your own stores, how has it changed the way that you do business for the better?
To start, it caused us to create a training program.
Yes.
I came back from having judged my first competition, and I used the technical score sheet as my new rubric to grade my baristas on. I just wanted to at least see that they would check each of the boxes on this technical score sheet, that they would do it in this order. And then from there, slowly but surely, we dialed it in more and more and more and just built it out to a training program for our in-house baristas that has now turned into a very large-scale training program that we offer to the public, to all of our wholesale customers, and to all of our baristas. And we charge for these classes, but it all was inspired by this level of dedication, and that you have to have a bar that someone has to reach. You can't just be kind of sort of do it like this. So having something that people could achieve that was measured. If you can't measure it, how can you give feedback? So yeah, and I mean, now there are more options for that than ever. I would argue back in 2009 when I judged my first barista competition, there was fewer. You would have to go to you have to travel a little ways to one of these barista academies and pay a couple $1,000s to go through a class. SEAA classes have slowly but surely developed now where barista camp, that's still not a super affordable option for everybody, but barista camps, and it used to be Expo, I think. Expo was where you would go to take classes. Now barista camps and skill sort of for professional development for coffee professionals, whether they're baristas, brewers, roasters. That stuff has really, in the last 5 years, become more broadly available. But before that, really, people were coming to barista competitions to compete and to judge, to learn what the standards were for this industry and see where they fell. Like, am I good, or am I at the top? Or everyone assumes you're in everyone assumes that they're above average, the Dunning-Kruger effect or something like that, right? Everyone's assuming that you overestimate your own performance, and then you throw yourself out there, you try, and you realize, okay, I'm not maybe where I thought I was. I have some work to do. And then they come back and they improve. So yeah, I think in the beginning, everyone was just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick. They weren't sure where they stood, but they were hoping they were in the upper echelon. But nowadays, with so many skills development classes, either through the SCAA or through the BJA or privately owned places, there's a bunch of methods and Barista Hustle, Sprudge. I mean, there's just more coffee publications. There's more books. There's more information. There's ways for you to check yourself and kind of see if you've got the skills that pay the bills or if you're kind of just deluding yourself. And I think everyone kind of wants to know, especially if you're isolated, like I found myself to be in Lancaster, not super close to a community. I would drive up to Philly and New York to connect and go to TNTs. But yeah, so being connected in that community kind of has inspired us to, create our own training programs, host our own events, kind of do what we've seen done, what we've seen can happen at these bigger, more coffee heavy towns. We can do that here as well. So connecting with the community is a benefit I didn't mention yet, but like that might be the number one, actually. That might actually win the day, because I do think that if an employee is at a shop, working that bar, week in, week out, every latte, every cappuccino, and looking at like where they fit in the grand scheme of things, there is something to be said about the camaraderie of that, the social networking. You can go to these events, meet people, commiserate, share highs and lows, have a great time, and then connect on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and then be a part of each other's lives, and then reconnect at these events. And it's actually a community that, we've seen some tragedies happen in the last couple of years, and you see them all pull together, pulling together funds, pulling together just well wishes, donating to charities as a community. So there's a lot of goodwill in the community, a lot of support that I've found keeps people here, people who have other disciplines, people who've gone to college for other things, that are just like, something about this community makes it that I feel at home and I don't feel this pressure to go leave. But without that community and that support, it could just feel like a job, even if it was a professional one and a good one. Without that community, I don't know, the longevity of it. I'm not saying community is golden handcuffs, but man, I do know that I've judged and volunteered for the SCA for the last 7 years very happily, almost 8 years, because of the people, not necessarily because, I paid my own way, but I saw enough benefits in the community, and obviously the other things we've already talked about. But like, yeah, that group of individuals and that camaraderie for me, kind of like my church, man. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Or your tribe, whatever it is you want to say. Like your group of like-minded people who just get it. We're cut from a similar cloth, and we're doing this same sorts of work day in and day out, and we empathize and understand each other in a way that you don't necessarily get to experience outside our industry as much.
I love it. You're touching on something that, first of all, I think the connection between getting more efficient, clean, and more professional on your bar in creating a better version of yourself as a barista, it seems like, this is what you want to do. We all want to be better at our jobs. We want to test ourselves against the standard that's out there, whatever that might be. It doesn't even have to be the SCAA. It could be whatever. But we always kind of look for that. And then the community aspect is huge as well. And it makes me think about, and maybe this is like a little devil's advocate here. So, okay. What if I am going to these events to escape my job? Like I'm sure there are baristas out there who just wish their bars could be more like competition and more like Barista Camp. Or is that realistic? Is there a danger of creating a sort of a mentality that is like throwing shade on their place of work in favor of these competitions? And what's the balance between that from a competitor's point of view, and also what to follow up to that? Not to add too much to the pile here, but how can an owner help balance that?
Well, as somebody who's been at barista camps and has been at competitions and been around an expo, been at these things, I've absolutely heard baristas get together or roasters get together, owners get together and commiserate. It's at all levels. So the barista being like, man, my boss just wants to keep it batch brew. He won't let us do pour over. He won't bring it in. He just thinks that, or this one, yeah, we do it, but he won't let us try other methods. He's only letting us do Kalita. That's it. Or he won't let us try Kalita. He's only having us do V60s, and that's so 2010. And I don't know, like everybody has something to whine about, it seems, and they're all justified because they see something that they think would improve things. They've got a vision, they've got a passion. So it's cool because they have a safe place to like vent about it. And then always without fail, people are like, we were that way too. And then here's what we did, and here's how we did it. And have you tried this? And so there's like a kind of a, I don't know, these roundtable discussions. And actually now at these events, there's more and more panel discussions and roundtables where people are like, not naming names, not telling you what bar I'm from, but like, how can we move forward and become a little more relevant to our community? Because here, like, we're still living in Starbucks land, and we'd like to move forward in this way, and our customers are ready, but our owners aren't. So there's diplomatic discussions, and usually people emerge with like, okay, here's what I'm going to try, or here's the suggestion, like strategies to try to make it work. But also the advice is given, like, if you're in a place and you really disagree with how it's being run and it's causing you to not enjoy working there, you should find a different job. So that's kind of what has emerged. I mean, that was at Maine. That wasn't an SCAA thing. Good old Mid-Atlantic Northeast Barista or coffee conference.
Great conference, yeah.
It's one of my favorite events in all of coffee. I love it so much. And yeah, one of the things is you're going to become bitter and resentful. And and as an employer, you don't want a staff member who's under you who feels like they're under you, like they're under your thumb, like they can't move or do the things they want, and that can become toxic. So it's like, if you have a way of like listening to your employees to gather those new ideas, and believe me, as an owner, when you send employees to these events, whether you go with them or not, they come back full of bright ideas, and they're excited and energetic. And that could be a scary thing, I guess, if you're afraid of change and whatever. But if you feel like you can sit down and debrief and have an unpacking of the ideas and some realistic discussions of what could be implemented and steps to do that in an orderly fashion, so it's not a crazy whirlwind that looks schizophrenic for your brand and to your customers. It has to be a slow and thoughtful process. But if your employees feel like they do have a way to pass information to you and share ideas with you all the time, then there's not as much of a threat of them going somewhere and coming back with this information that may be scary and new. Because listen, we never did pour over, and my husband wanted to move to pour over. He said we should just go to all pour over, and I was just like, no, we can't even keep up with big batches. How is this going to happen? So, I mean, for a long time, I was that owner that was just like, no, that doesn't make sense. That's business 101. This is not broken. Why would we try to fix this? And this is going to take effort for us to actually build out some extra space or reorganize our bar to make this work. But slowly but surely, we were open to the conversation, and our employees, I think, even at the time, were asking us, why would we change this? So the ideas could come from the owners. Like if you're like me and you just went to this event, you come back and now you're coming back to your staff bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, guys, we're going to do pour over, and your staff's already overworked and they're like, no, how is that possible? So I mean, it can go two ways. Yeah, I just think there has to be a dialogue between the management and the ownership and the staff in order for there not to be this toxic buildup of good ideas that went to die,
Sure,
even if they're not totally possible for your shop, your barista feeling like, and oftentimes they do have to explain why it wouldn't be possible, and I'm right. And other times I'm right until I'm not right anymore, because then once this one thing changes, now it's possible. So it's a continual dialogue. There's no like final, no, we're never doing this. We don't ever say that about anything anymore. We're not doing this yet. We haven't found a good reason to start doing this or that, or to change this or that.
So it sounds like,
but we never say no, I guess,
So it sounds like what you're saying is you have to be doing the communication and set up a culture where questions are safe, communication is safe, And then when people go away and come back with great ideas, you're going to have a forum already set up to be able to absorb the impact of that enthusiasm, and you shouldn't be threatened by that.
Yes.
Sometimes status quo is okay if that status quo is super high quality. If
Yeah,
the way that you do
absolutely.
things works well. So it sounds like competition is not only a challenge for the staff to better their skills, but it could also be a challenge that an owner takes on to improve their skills in caring for their staff and communicating to their staff. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, it poses. I mean, I've gone with my staff. I bring my Square One crew along with me and try to rotate who gets to come on these trips, and it can be like an internal system of reward as well. And whether we're bringing competitors because they won our in-house competition, so now they've advanced and they get to go, or they've been with us for a long time and they've got great palates and they're been selected by me to come along and judge at these competitions. So it's like an internal reward system, but then traveling with the staff causes you to become human and a part of your staff like you never realized before, but in a really great way. Absolutely. Obviously I travel to Origin with my staff too. So yeah, them getting to see that I'm not just one way at work and some other way when I go to events and some other way when I'm at home, like really getting to kind of break, I guess that would be blurring the professional lines for sure, like getting to actually travel and live together, kind of a little coffee commune at moments. But that I think has caused us to, as a staff, have a culture of transparency because when I'm having a bad day, I don't feel the need to gloss over it, put on a happy face when they're having a bad day. Just feel like it has enhanced our communication as a team. And also, like, even when you're not traveling together, when I'm coaching or getting ready to send someone on these events away to these events, they know that they're going and they're representing our company, they're representing our values, and the communication that we have leading up to those events and during those events and then after those events. I actually, thinking about it as you're forcing me to, that has caused us to set up whole dialogues because of this. So we'll have to have here's the goal going into this event. Here's what we'd like to see as a company. Here's what we'd like to achieve. Check in during the event. And then afterwards, like, okay, let's round up what were our takeaways? What can we do better next time? And that's kind of how we're attacking any project that we're doing as a company. But really, an 8-hour drive to Durham, North Carolina is a great time to talk about the goals and what your company is really about and where it's headed. I've never had to expound on my vision for the company or gotten a chance to expound on my vision for the company just from my gut as it was coming out as we're on this road trip driving down the road, as we really got into it on an 8 or 9 hour road trip going to these events. And then everyone in that car feels like they got like the secret, like the nuclear codes to Square One. Like they all feel like they just got the inside scoop on where the company's headed, what the real passion of the person driving this ship, I guess, in their mind is. Like, we've chosen to be a part of this company. We've given our lives to this company, because when you give hours every day and days every week for years and years and years, we're giving our physical lives to this company. And at the end of the day, we really want to know that the person whose vision this is that we're following is headed in the right direction and their heart's good. And I don't know how often employers get an opportunity to show their heart to their employees. And that gets real like existential and what like mushy gushy or however you want to go with it. But like just their goodwill, their real genuine core. How often do your employees get to see it? It's really hard in a cafe setting day in and day out. So I don't know. I've talked to some really inspiring owners in coffee. Actually, I got to lead an HR panel at Maine. And so I grabbed some of my favorite heroes and favorite companies and put them on the panel. And they have more employees than I do, but they still find a way to like have a yearly staff retreat where they take them all camping, or they all go and so that's inspiring me. And we have some rock climbing gyms that are going to give us a great deal. We're going to have some staff team building times, sending their employees through some like formal communications and mediation and oh gosh, help me, Chris. De-escalation.
Yes. Okay. I was having a hard time there thinking of it.
De-escalation training, all of these ideas. I mean, this is all from getting together at these events, circling up, sharing our issues, and then the collective brain trust, the community, like, man, inspired every single time.
Nice. Well, it sounds like it can be it's true that a barista can get lonely in their job day to day. They want to be connected, but they're just like that machine that's making those coffees, making those, collecting tips and going home and doing it again the next day. And for an owner, and even for me as a manager, it's one of those things where you jump from one thing to another. You don't allow yourselves these large periods of time without filling it with something. And if you're like you say, you're trapped in that car, your soul is being born out to these folks who work for you. People are loyal to people they have relationships with. And the relationships that baristas form with one another is great. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say if you're an owner and you're hyper involved in your barista's activity and competition, or just in general with them as individuals, they're going to be more loyal to you, and they're going to do better work for you, and they're going to feel more valued in the work that they do accomplish on the bar. Whereas before, maybe they don't think they're seen, the great things that they're doing. So you have to be hyper involved. And it reminds me of a post that Nick Cho put up about competition recently on his Medium page about being an owner who sponsors, and is I think the main thing that I got from that was be the loudest voice in the front row, cheering them on. We all heard Nick in Knoxville cheering for Bethany in the front row, and it was just amazing. And that idea, from an owner's perspective, is that's your competition. It's like that's your stage, and those are your judges.
Yeah. No, if you look back at any of Hadassah's performances, I am the loudest voice. I screamed myself hoarse. I bawled my eyes out. I was just a mess. I was a mess. I had to even recuse myself from judging for most of the afternoon if she was performing in the afternoon, or morning if she was performing in the morning, because if I'm a judge, I'm giving everything to who I'm judging. And if I don't feel like I can do that, I won't judge. And I was such a wreck of excitement and nerves and energy around her performance that absolutely I was her biggest cheerleader and chief dishwasher. And I don't think I answered your question. Did you have, what was? Oh.
I don't even think it was a question.
Yeah, I mean, owners, I mean, I have always gone because I'm so involved, but owners come along or send a staff along. I've seen it both ways, and I know not every owner can take the time to do that. But if you can connect with your crew, even if it's just at US or go to Maine or something, just something at least with your core team of people, leadership. But yeah, the more you can do that, I think that has been the secret, I think, to our success when it comes to why people want to work at Square One and why they want to stay working at Square One as long as they do. Every single person in our company has started as a barista. And so they all had to start at Square One, and we did not intend for me to be able to say that.
Yes.
That is just a coincidence, but it's so true. Every single person had to start as a barista. So my director of wholesale has been with us for 9 years. He was a barista. We worked bar shifts together. Hadassah was a barista. We worked bar shifts together. Jacob, my head roaster, was a barista. We worked bar shifts together. They were all baristas. And so anybody who's advanced from there has seen that we're growing. We've tapped them. We've said, hey, do you want to try this? And now we're growing this whole technical department. And so people are finding new paths forward and advancement in areas they never saw. So the ceiling it continues to lift. So as we grow as a company, people really who catch the vision, they're long term. And I don't know how any company can grow without people in it catching that vision and understanding why the company exists and why it's different than the shop across the town. And not that, and every shop should know why it's different. Every shop should know why it exists. Why is it, and it should be different because they're different people. So there's a different heart. So even if it sounds the same, even if the menu's the same, they're doing it with some sort of, how is it that they're putting their spin on it, their stamp on it, and how are they treating their guests? Even if they're using the same exact roaster, even in the same exact town, they have a way to put their own stamp on it. And there's the human element that I think, you're going to draw people to work there who may not be drawn to work at my shop, and vice versa. So yeah, but the better you can articulate it and the more your staff are aware of what that is. I will also caution that as an owner, when you do that, you push people away as much as you attract people. You create a culture, and it draws people who are super into it, and it pushes people away who find it not as appealing. So, but yeah, that's the risk that you take when you have a point of view. Like, not everybody likes every band in the same way. Not everyone likes the same foods, the same restaurants. We all have different favorites, and I have a ton of favorite roasters. I don't even think I could pick one, but like for different reasons. Different ones have their different strengths and different weaknesses.
So we've talked a lot about your experience with the competitions and how it relates to your stores and your staff and the benefits for owners and baristas. And at the end of the show here, I wonder if you would give us some final thoughts from the owner's perspective, for the owners out there, people that would be sending baristas to competitions, and for the baristas who want to be involved in competitions and just how to approach that. How does it connect to the relevancy of their job? What's the correct way to go about moving forward and really getting the most out of this experience for your career and for what you do on a daily basis?
That's a lot, Chris. But I think from an owner's perspective, from owner to owner, looking at these competitions, for me, it screams opportunity, and it could be harnessed in a whole bunch of different ways. And I'm not sure, each owner is coming from a different place. But for me, over 7, almost 8 years, I've seen it help me define my brand and help me decide what it was that I stood for and what it was that made me different. And yes, maybe I'm serving the same drinks and the same sort of format, but how am I going to put my spin on it? How am I going to? So it kind of sparked creativity, but also helped me really put pen to paper and put my money where my mouth was and define the brand, and really rubbing shoulders with a whole bunch of other brands in this huge community, but it's also a small community at the same time. Being able to really get out of my very insular owner's perspective of my business and my town and my economy that I live in day to day, to just take a trip outside of that, zoom out and get a bird's eye perspective and really kind of refocus and bring that focus back to the brand. That has been huge for me as an owner, and doing that with your staff, being able to be in that car for 8 or 9 hours to articulate to your staff why you got into this business in the first place and where your heart's at, getting those opportunities to connect with key people on your staff like this, and spread that through your company as much as possible. Those are the huge opportunities that I see competition as being, as well as, your opportunity to put your brand on a national stage in a very much marketing and advertising sort of a way. You're also doing some deep root level investment into the brand when it comes to your people, your staff, your core team, who, as an owner, you are looking to find ways to enrich their lives and add value to their jobs, because you need them at their best, and you need their loyalty, you need their skills and expertise, and you want the relationship between you and your staff to be a win-win. You want them to feel that they're giving it everything to the company, and that they're being properly compensated, and that they're being invested in as people, that there's a real win-win. Just like how we talk about fair trade with farmers, and we go all the way, and we want it to be a win-win. We don't want to profit off of anyone. Yeah, we should be looking at our baristas and our roasters and our packagers and our, barbacks in this way too. How can we all together pursue that vision, and it's not an overnight change. So it's a lot of daily discussions. So if it's been years or months, it's been a long time since you've had sorts of these kinds of conversations with your staff. I do feel like competition has been a way to force just better dialogue and communication internally in my staff, because we have to talk about nothing else. What do we want to go there to do? What are our goals? Are we competing? Yes. Okay. What are we bringing to the table afterwards? How did we do? We're going to lick our wounds, or we're going to celebrate, or how can we do better? It just forces conversations that we should be having every day, but it gives us a reason to start having them. And so I just think it can be a great catalyst. If you're awkward like me and you're not sure how to get a conversation going on a regular basis with your crew, try throwing yourselves out there, going to an event like this, seeing where you stand, and it's going to stir things up and cause some real good conversation, and also cause some of your sleepers, some of your staff who maybe you haven't given a ton of thought to, who haven't put their hands up. They're not the first always to volunteer for stuff, but it'll cause some of those people to actually have something to speak up about. You got to give them some momentum, just that first shove down the mountain, and then the rest takes care of itself. I've seen that from an owner's perspective to be, that's like 4 different benefits all wrapped into one. And
Beautiful.
It probably doesn't even talk about like the clear monetary and brand benefits to winning, which are obvious, I think.
Sure. And for the barista that is looking at competition and wants to grow their career, but also wants to do well in the job that they have, how should they be thinking about competition? Like when they're watching the live stream in April, and they see you there judging. Are you judging in April?
I'll be there for sure, whether I'm judging or backstage helping out somehow. I'll be helping. Yeah.
So all this is going down in Seattle in April, and they're watching this, wondering about 2018. What's a healthy perspective for them to have that will serve them well for the duration of their career in coffee, and how competition can help them advance themselves? So
there's a lot. If you're just watching from the live stream, listen to the barista, listen to their stories, because they're all coming from a point of view, and some of them are coming out with very personal stories, very personal routines. Others are representing a brand or a company. So, or others are just totally going all out and representing the farmer. They're not even. So there's a ton of different levels you could approach a competition routine at. So, I think why is the question. Why would you want to compete? Because clearly you've listened to this podcast and you know that it's only going to make you a better barista. I've never talked to a single person who's done this who has not said, even if they finished dead last, I am 100% a better barista today than I was before I started training for this. It's just a unanimous fact that training for this makes you better. So you already know you're going to get that out of it. So it's just, what are my goals? What am I looking to, personal goals? And then I think it's very important to, if your company is willing to support you to go through this endeavor, what are the company's goals? You want to make sure that you have a really clear conversation about that. But yeah, as a barista or a brewer or a cup taster or a roaster looking to be in any of these sorts of competitions, what's my intent? Like, what am I looking to do? And what do I bring to this stage that no one else brings? What's my unique perspective? How can I do this in a way that it hasn't been done before? Those are all things that are rewarded highly on the score sheet, but also like, I think some people just wanted, I'm just going to jump out there and do it, but they don't necessarily have like a full grasp on even like what their voice is, what their perspective is. So just start to think, I guess, bigger picture questions of, so yeah, I'm going to compete, whether that's a real big stretch for me or that's totally something I would do because I totally love karaoke and I do this stuff all the time. Like whichever side of the personality perspective you're on, which I've never competed, and that's because that idea terrifies me and I've never done karaoke, and I owe Bethany Hargrove a karaoke session because I lost the bet. I'm really sorry about it. Still working up the nerve to do it. I'll take anyone's karaoke song suggestions, but they have to be like really, my speaking range is all I've got. So,
well, if this podcast has done nothing else but bring that up again as a reminder, then we've done our job.
No, but I mean, as a barista, you just want to, I mean, first of all, your soundtrack, right? I mean, we joke, but like honestly, you get to choose how you want to set the table, literally, how you want to set the stage, what vibe you want to create, what glasses you're going to serve, what story you're going to tell. You get 15 minutes on stage to really show yourself and or your company. Hopefully, you can find a way to do both, or so what is that? And brainstorming around that idea. And just jumping in and actually being thoughtful about, I guess, the barista who is looking to start this whole thing. Go back at your shop and see how long it takes you to make 4 cappuccinos. See how long it takes you to pull 4 espressos, and like your speed, your efficiency. Look back afterwards. If there were tech judges there to count all the grams of ground coffee wasted per shot, how much would that be? You can start preparing today. You can just have in mind the Nathaniel Mays who are there just squatting down, watching your level tamp,
Yes.
You can already start to gear up for that mindset and try to run a clean and efficient bar. And those tech score sheets and all of that stuff's available online to look through and see like what you're actually up against. And at the end of the day, it is a game. Competition is a game. There's a score sheet. There are points that you win. There are points that you lose. There are referees. You're trying to use the score sheet and get as many points as you possibly can, because at the end of the day, the winner is not necessarily the most memorable presentation always. It's not always necessarily the best on this stage. It's the people who got the most points. Mm-hmm. So there's some competitors who've done a really good job at like Maxwell Mooney has broken down a couple years ago, like the score sheet and exactly what things were weighted heavier based on the overall point values. Like, here's what you should be focusing on if you're going to limit your focus. Here's what you should, like, you could break it down and get real scientific about that if you want. And people do. Those people don't always win either. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's a game, but it's a game that employs industry best practices as its rules and standards. So your shops will vary and serve and have different styles of service. But what's currently, whatever is the standard and the rule, the industry's best practice is typically rewarded and deviations from that penalized. So I think you're looking at playing a game that's going to make you a better craftsperson at the end of the day. I don't know that other industries have anything like that. Maybe the bar world has its the cocktail competitions, which certainly cause you to be very accurate and efficient with your pours and all of that. But
it's like a connection between the perspective that owners can take and the perspective a barista can take is take this as a means to an end, and that end being personal growth, corporate growth, and growth of relationships within your organization. And just your comment about how you've never talked to a barista, no matter how poorly they've done, that has said that anything but that this made them a better barista. I mean, I can attest to that. As poorly as I did my first time competing, held the record for the most number of minutes overtime, 23 minutes. And it was beaten maybe like 5 years later, but it was I became better because of that. I brought back up signature drink glasses next time when one breaks.
Yeah.
It teaches you a lot of great stuff, but ultimately, there's that you want to win, you want to go out there to win and do well, but then you want to do well by yourself as well, by your internal standards, as well as your, the standards being leveled on you by the competition. So, man, this has just been a really great conversation with you, Jess. I'm so happy to have gotten some time with you to discuss this. And I know that anyone listening will have gotten a lot from this as well. And hopefully won't watch the live stream with the same mindset, they'll be a little bit more informed. And I wonder, how can people reach out to you in your company? How can they connect with you on the internet and all that good stuff?
So you can find me, Steffy Jess, on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure it's Steffy Jess on Instagram too, but I have an underscore between them because it wasn't available. But also, my personal email is Jess@Square One Coffee, all spelled out, squareonecoffee.com. So
okay, and that's Steffy double F, Jess double S.
Yeah, yes, double F double S. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we're we really appreciate your expertise really in this thing, and your experiences. Really valuable, and I hope this rest of the month is the downtime that you need to refuel and get ready for April. That's going to be a big time.
I may or may not be fasting coffee for the next couple days just to get back to like a normal level of sanity, and then right back at it. But yeah, it'll definitely be restful, and then hit the ground running hard in Seattle.
Awesome. Well, you're a rock star, and we all appreciate you, Jess. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Man, there's so much to love in this discussion. Really thankful for Jess taking the time to help us break down the ideas of competition's relevancy to our cafes and what we do on a day-to-day basis. I love the idea of competition being a facilitator of deeper relationships within the community and within the business itself. It helps you define what you're all about as an individual competing, and what you're about as a business, sending people to compete. And those were the main things for me in the discussion, beyond the fact that you will just definitely be a better barista as a result of going through the process of competition. So I highly encourage all of you listening to consider competition as a means to that end, the end of becoming a better professional, yes, but also increasing the engagement between you and your staff, you and the community of coffee at large. It's just a really great opportunity to get those things rolling. And I hope you all can make it to Seattle. I know that I'm not going to be able to make it this year, so I'm a little bummed about that. But guess what? There's a live stream available. You can find out all the updates about the competition and information about the competitors who you can follow on sprudgelive.com. And they'll have the links to the live stream and all that good stuff. So that's where I will be in April with a cup of coffee at my desk. So there you go. The show notes, as always, are available on the website under the resources tab, which I've conveniently linked to in the description of the show. You can reach out to me by emailing chris@keystotheshop.com. So if you want to share some thoughts that you have about competition, if you want to ask questions about anything or suggest topics for future shows, or have a question that you maybe want answered on the show, definitely into it. So just email me there, chris@keystotheshop.com. And if you like today's episode and you like what we're doing at Keys to the Shop, please consider leaving a rating and review on iTunes. Thank you so much for those of you who have gone ahead and done that. It's really been helpful to get the show out in front of more people, and I appreciate you and all of you guys listening. Well, I wish you all a fantastic week, and I hope you get the opportunity to participate in competitions real soon. And as always, keep being inspired by people and coffee, because they are the keys to the shop.